modesty in dress is important. Even if you don't mean to, you can be an occasion of sin for someone else. I don't care, I don't give a hoot what the fashions of the day are. Some of those fashions are outright immoral, immodest, and they facilitate the sin of other people. And if the person doesn't know it, you know, a lot of children don't know it. Young people aren't aware. You know, they grow up in this environment, and they don't mean to do anything better. No, they're not consciously, all of them, thinking, well, I'm going to go see who I can get to, you know, commit some kind of sin now by looking at me. No, they don't think that. But, you know, if parents and the community doesn't foster a sense of modesty, then where are they going to get it from? They're just not going to get it. And let me tell you something, parents. If you are too indifferent or cowardly to take a stand, or you just don't want to hear the moaning and the groaning, like the Midas guy says, you can pay me now or you can pay me later, well, you can listen to it now or you can listen to God later. I remember one time a story, somebody went to confession to Padre Pio one time in Italy when he was alive, and all of a sudden there was a ruckus, and he chased the person out of the confessional. And now he can get away with that. He was a saintly man. But then they came back. He was praying for the person. They came back later. What he got so upset was that in a mystical way, he saw what happened to the children of this woman who, wanting to be nice to them, not wanting to cause them any problems, wanting to have them go along with their friends, not be out of step, wouldn't tell them how they should dress modestly. And what happened was, two girls were involved. They were good-looking girls. And so that was a strike against them right there, that they were born beautiful. Number two, the clothing. And three was, all the boys paid a lot of attention to them. They liked that, and they began to drift into an immoral state of life. And Padre Pio saw in a mystical way that they both ended in hell. And he held that directly against that parent. Now he gave the person absolution, you know, because they were repentant, and he helped them know. But it is not a small thing. People, even in church, I've had people come and tell me this. You know, someone walks down the aisle of church. I've seen Eucharistic ministers dressed in what I can only call it seductive. And they say, well, that's your problem. That's how you're looking at it. Buster, that's how it is. And that's how anybody would look at it, because certain fashions are exactly that, and don't do it. Because if you do, you can be directly contributing to the sin of another, because human nature is broken, frail, wounded. We tend towards sin. You push somebody a little too far, they go over the edge. And so there is such a thing as modesty, and we have to bring that back to our society, because if we don't correct it, God will. And his ways are not our ways. His ways can be pretty tough. He chastises every son or daughter that he loves. And so we can learn it the easy way or the hard way. But one way or another, we've got to learn it and put it into effect. I started to tell you before, sometimes I get very angry at this society, because this is a permissive society. There's a difference between tolerance and permissiveness. Tolerance admits a wide spectrum of the good. I have to be tolerant of anything good. I do not have to be tolerant of evil, however. When I begin to tolerate evil, become complacent, and begin to facilitate and enable that evil, I have become permissive. A permissive attitude towards morality is what's developed in this country. this country is becoming an immoral country, and what happens is the manifestations of that immorality, abortion, euthanasia, suicide, violence, it escalates. It goes from bad to worse. And I'll tell you, at the root of a lot of that is impurity. One of the surest ways to blind yourself to truth is to fall into sins of impurity. What happens is moral blindness inevitably, not immediately, but inevitably and ultimately, moral blindness sets in. You know, a lot of sins, which the world tells us aren't sins, sins against purity, masturbation, for instance, they blind a person. And pretty soon you're blind to truth. You don't know your left hand from your right. You can't recognize the truth. You don't accept church teaching. They're deadly. And we have to begin to be very careful about this. And I'll tell you something. If I were a parent today, God help us, I don't know what I'd do. I don't know, you know, I think you parents have the hardest job in the world, and I have the utmost respect for you. But probably, one reason I'm not a parent, probably I don't have the right gifts for it, so God didn't let me make that mistake. But it's such a noble calling, such a great responsibility. You know, some people have moved their families out of cities. You know, they move away, and they go to little towns or places in Utah or Idaho or, you know, in Maine back east and Vermont, and they get out of those urban areas where the stench, the literal stench of impurity and immorality suffocates the life right out of a moral person. And they don't want to be, it's hard enough as it is to carry around this human nature which is broken with us. No matter where you are, you struggle. But it can be worse when you're surrounded by these things. You know, you've got all kinds of immoral things around Sacramento, pornography and so forth. Hey, it's bad enough if you live in the woods in New Hampshire, but when you have all those things, especially on young people, that makes it so much more difficult. Society has an obligation to ensure the moral character of its people. And so this moral permissiveness is a kiss of death in our country, and we're inheriting the consequences of it. Abortion isn't a cause, it's an effect. Abortion is an effect of an underlying moral sickness. When you begin to abuse sexuality, things like artificial contraception and then abortion become consequences of those underlying moral diseases. You can't cure cancer with a Band-Aid. You have to treat the cause of the disease, not the effects. You'll never get rid of abortion or other things like artificial contraception until the moral basis, the real wound itself, is healed. And that is, we have to begin to realize that sexuality is sacred and that purity is necessary. And just a practical note, great devotion to our Blessed Mother, praying the rosary every day, wearing the brown scapular, which isn't magic, but it is mystery, and the Eucharist. Those things, more than anything else, will give you a certain armor. Are you immune completely? No, you still have to fight it out, but at least you have a fighting chance. Pray the rosary. Wear the brown scapular, miraculous medal. Take advantage of the sacramentals of the church, and don't listen to any of those people who tell you that that's nonsense. Avoid those people like the plague, because they are a plague and a pox on the house of God. Use the things God has given us to protect us, and then receive the Eucharist in a state of grace as often as you can. And you'll have a fighting chance to resist